2020 Rockbridge County Board of Supervisors meeting to order. Randy, will you do roll call, please?
Sure. Supervisor Lewis.
Present.
Supervisor Day.
Here.
Supervisor Ayers. Here. Supervisor McDaniel.
Yes.
And Chairman Lyons.
Here. At this time, we'll have the invocation by Supervisor Lewis, followed by the pledge.
O God, protector of all who trust in you, without whom nothing is strong, nothing is holy. Increase and multiply on us your mercy, that with you as our guide, as we struggle through things temporal, we lose not the things eternal. Amen.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
A couple of special announcements. While the room will be open to the public, due to the size of the meeting room and social distancing requirements, no more than 30 attendees will be allowed in the room at one time, per the Governor of the Commonwealth of Virginia, Executive Order 63. All persons over the age of 10 that do not have a precluding medical condition are asked to wear a face covering. We will hold citizen comments near the beginning of the meeting. We will do our best to take citizen comments remotely. There are two options. First, you can join the Rockbridge County Board of Supervisors Zoom webinar. The link is on the county website to copy into the address line on your browser. Or you can join by telephone. You may dial into one of the numbers listed on the county website. Web ID and password are there for your convenience. Citizens wishing to simply view the meeting live or after the fact can do so on the Rockbridge County Board of Supervisors YouTube channel, also available on the county website. If you wish to make a citizen comment as a Zoom meeting participant, you will use the raise your hand feature. You can press the raise your hand button on the bottom of the Zoom window, or press *9 if you're calling in by telephone. Are there any changes to the agenda?
I have one addition.
Okay.
I'd like to add at the beginning of general items to name an acting clerk during the absence of the county administrator.
Okay. Any other changes? Okay. At this time, we will open the citizen comment portion of the meeting. We ask that when you come to the podium, state your name and magisterial district. Please address your comments to the board and limit those comments to 3 minutes. Does someone have the list?
I do share lines.
Okay.
First is Scott Geist from 4th Street.
Good evening, Board of Supervisors. I'd like to start by announcing my official candidacy for the Rockbridge County Board of Supervisors of Carrs Creek for 2022 against incumbent Dan Lyons. Secondly, as commander, I'm here to introduce the Institute for the Defense of Rockbridge County, officially to the county as a whole, IDRC for short. Our mission statement: as an all-volunteer force comprised per Virginia State Code 44-1 and encompassing an auxiliary detachment of patriots greater than 55 years of age and younger than 16, exists to serve as a force multiplier that can integrate into current ICS or NIMS, Incident Command System or National Incident Command Systems, if you're not familiar with that, to augment local law enforcement, EMS, National Guard, and Air Guard, and the Virginia Defense Force in support of domestic operations for the stability of Rockbridge County and its defense against enemies, both foreign and domestic, under the Constitution of the United States of America and the Virginia State Constitution. The IDRC's METs or medals, which stands for Mission Essential Task List, are to operate outside of any official command and control not organic to the IDRC until voluntarily integrated, focusing on weapons and firearms training and battlefield tactics, survival training, camaraderie, and community service. Our end state is to operate a structured, well-trained, and disciplined militia force to pool resources and network with militias statewide, augmenting as we are able and requested by the county. Furthermore, the IDRC will be used as a mechanism to force elected officials to obey the will of the people, utilizing professional discourse and ensuring the education of citizens of this county in regards to how the county is utilizing taxpayer dollars and ordinances that affect their or our rights, where local government falls short of their oaths and promises. The IDRC has already met its mission repeatedly, representing the county citizens with professionalism and dignity on many occasions, and will do so as we navigate through these uncertain times. I leave you with this from Shakespeare. Cowards die many times before their deaths. The valiant never taste taste of death but once. Thank you.
Thank you.
CJ Hall, also Forest Creek.
CJ Hall, Carrs Creek. Good evening, sirs, ma'am. I've had the good fortune of growing up and living in Rockbridge County and being raised by parents who not only provided me with sustenance and love, but also, and perhaps more importantly, with the knowledge of what is right and wrong and the ability to think for myself. When they weren't intentionally teaching me, I still learned lessons. I watched them. I would have seen the bad if it were there, but without fail, I saw not only goodness, but they're standing up for what was right, and when necessary, stepping up to fight what was wrong. So now I try to do the same. I follow my heart. I'm a free thinker. I'm not easily influenced and of my own free will. Out of concerns we face today and of my own conclusions, I find myself standing here and once again find that I have the good fortune of not standing alone. That through reaching out into our community, I've met and become acquainted with some outstanding people, some of whom are here tonight. On that note, I would like to expand on the previous speaker's comments. While concerns over the Second Amendment are but one issue among many that we face today, attacks on it over the past year were in fact key events that have spawned additional diligence by the citizenry. Knowing and understanding the domino effect upon the Bill of Rights and the Constitution that would be inevitable should the Second Amendment fall, in addition to the collective feeling in our communities that we are not necessarily protected by our local governments from bad legislation, has led to the founding and establishment of a local group of citizens. We have all heard, and I've been told myself from those in local government, that we have to follow state law, that we have to stay inside those parameters, that local governments cannot cross that line. But what if those laws attempt to take away rights that are inherent and inalienable? What about the laws that have no moral foundation? If you truly feel that you cannot cross that line, I ask that you each put your toe on it to advance every inch you can in the protection of our community. And if you can't or won't, I tell you, we are here. Again, I introduce you to the Institute for the Defense of Rockbridge County, the IDRC. And I say to you and all of Rockbridge County, we stand and walk among you. We are from different backgrounds, from many trades and professions. We are supervisors and business owners, veterans and service people, parents and family members. We are citizens. Wherever you are in this county, you are not far from one of us. And my intention is for you to take comfort in that statement. We are here for our community to help and protect our neighbors and those in need. We are here to be active politically, to see that local governing bodies abide by the Constitution as we hold it dear to our hearts. We are here to protect the rights of citizens and to toe that line however we must. We are here to support our law enforcement and EMS personnel, and we are here to support you, our elected officials. But know also that we, as every citizen should be, are watching. We are not so naive as to think your job is easy, that every decision you make is a simple one. But I offer that if you follow this, the Constitution, and seek advice from above, when your hearts may doubt, we will prevail together. On behalf of the IDRC, I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Hall.
Ron Cash, investor.
May I remove the mask to speak? Pardon?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. I also would like to thank the Board of Supervisors for giving us the opportunity this evening to introduce the Institute for the defense of Rockbridge County, the IDRC. My name is Ronald Cash. I'm a relatively new member of the IDRC. My wife and I are citizens of Buena Vista. However, we own a couple of undeveloped acres in the county upon which we pay taxes, so I don't feel too out of place speaking here this evening. To tell you a little more about myself, I am a United States Marine Corps veteran with all of my service during peacetime. I was an electronics technician in the Corps, so I didn't spend much time crawling around on my belly with a rifle cradled in my elbows, although the job I performed sometimes required more of me than I thought possible. But with God and the Marine Corps, all things are possible. The experiences and lessons learned regarding hard work, honor, patriotism, discipline, esprit de corps, duty, and service have benefited me well in every area of my life since my honorable discharge in 1981. Additional service in the Marine Corps Reserve during my college years gave me an opportunity to continue to serve in a force of readiness while earning a small paycheck to help with college. Second only to committing my life to Christ, the Marine Corps was the best thing that ever happened to me. Between college years, I was blessed to be able to do an extensive amount of traveling throughout America, including 2 transcontinental bicycle rides that introduced me to thousands of proud, patriotic Americans, and only a couple of scoundrels. I was able to experience America in all its diversity of people and places like not many could ever hope to do. I also did a lot of hitchhiking around the country in those days, and to take a line from a Johnny Cash song, I came away with a different point of view. I spent some time in the Pacific Northwest, and to see on television what it has become this year is unimaginable to me. After the Marine Corps, I was able to get a good education under the GI Bill that led to an excellent career in the utility business. My wife and I live a comfortable but not indulgent life. I'm blessed to serve my friends and neighbors in several leadership roles in our local church. In short, I have been living the American dream. I have feasted on the fat of this great land. Earlier this year, after the Chinese virus was unloaded on America and the tragic death of George Floyd, I watched with the rest of you as our nation began to unravel. Rogue organizations terrorized many of our larger cities, and unbelievably, liberal politicians sided with and defended them. It did not look anything like the America I signed up to serve when I was 18 years old, nor did the people remind me of those I had met in my many youthful travels. I became genuinely concerned for the safety of my family, my church, and my community. In mid-June, I called a meeting at Jordan's Point to gauge public interest in starting a local militia. I hope to gather a group of patriots to stand in readiness to protect our community if the insanity that we were seeing as close by as Richmond should spill over the mountains into our peaceful valley. It was at that meeting that I discovered a well-regulated militia was already in place in Rockbridge County under the able leadership of Scott Guys. Rather than trying to reinvent the wheel, I decided to unite with the IDRC and offer my service there. In the 3 short months since I met Scott, I found the IDRC and its members to be a fine group of patriotic Americans with a diverse set of skills and experiences. The training that Scott has provided for us has been as thorough and professional as anyone could hope to obtain anywhere at any cost. I have learned techniques that I was not even aware of as a Marine. I have also gained a strong appreciation for observation as a critical tool in any conflict. Restraint has been taught and encouraged, since most actions and all mistakes have little or no turnaround room in this sphere of service. So that's some background on me and how I became affiliated with the IDRC. Let me share with you for a moment longer what my service in the IDRC means to me personally. One of the earliest memories of my childhood is my mother sitting on the sofa with her face in her hands, sobbing at the news of President John F. Kennedy's assassination. Something clicked in the heart and mind of a 4-year-old that day as Mama explained that the leader of our nation had been murdered. Even as a lad, I understood that being American meant something, and that something could require sacrifice and bring great heartache. I remember the images of the horse-drawn caisson bearing the coffin and the many reruns of President Kennedy's impassioned call to service in his inaugural address just 2 short years earlier. In the years that followed, the tensions of the Cold War rose ever higher. America put a man on the moon, and the nightly news carried reports of Nikita Khrushchev's bitter hatred for America and the ever-present threat of nuclear war. Communism was a bad word that sent chills through most Americans. Just yesterday, I noticed the 1954 date on the cornerstone of the War Memorial Building in Buena Vista. The building was built as a fallout shelter because the very real threat of nuclear war present in the middle of the 20th century. We're now well into the new century, and the threat of nuclear war is still present, but we don't talk about it much. Many Americans, particularly the young woke crowd, if you will, seem more interested in pointing out what is wrong with America and seeking justice through rebellious and destructive activities of their own design rather than through the rule of law. Rioting, looting, arson, anarchy, rejection of authority, and hatred for police are fashionable among our youth and commended by liberal politicians. Liberal universities teach our children how to overthrow the government, if you can imagine. Communities are torn along racial and political lines, as well as what we perceive to be adverse ideologies. A viral pandemic of dubious origins places us on opposite ends of the spectrum of cultural mores. Mask or no mask, closed for business or open at any cost are arguments we hear regularly. And all the while, our enemy snickers behind our backs. Call it liberalism, leftism, Marxism, communism, or call it a figment of my imagination, but somewhere out there is a concerted effort to overthrow America, one mind at a time. Never have we been more vulnerable, as nearly all our youth have adopted Marxist thinking to some degree, either consciously or unconsciously. America is under attack, and we must be prepared. Freedom has always been under attack. Wherever and whenever men and women have desired to be free, there are those whose will it was to subdue them. It is no less today than it was during the American Revolution, the Civil War, World War I, or any of the wars that have ravaged the world over the eons. Our fathers, our forefathers, recognizing that freedom's cords are tenuous, added the Second Amendment, saying a well-regulated militia was necessary, not just desirable, not useful, not helpful or handy, but necessary to the security of a free state. It was Thomas Jefferson who said, "The tree of liberty must be refreshed from time to time with the blood of patriots and tyrants." Now, I prefer that the tyrants give their blood in the fight for liberty, but if I must, I will gladly give of mine. And so here we are, the Institute for the Defense of Rockbridge County. We're not a bunch of gun nuts or hunters with an itch to shoot something. We're patriots. We are men and women of conviction and character. We are trained. We are veterans, business people, educators, white collar, blue collar, family people, men and women of faith. We are free men, and we shall always be. We are the IDRC, and we are at the service of Rockbridge County and all of Virginia. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly.
I'll let Mary read.
Good evening. I am Colette Barryreck, and I am currently from Lexington, soon to be from Fairfield. And I'm going to read a short message from Dr. Sebi Lee Volpe, who is the mission pastor of the Kerrs Creek Baptist Church. He's also the chaplain for our IDRC, the Institute for Defense of Rockbridge. Dr. Volpe says, "Thanks to all of you for allowing this statement to be read in my absence. Board of Supervisors, on behalf of the Christian community, I would like to thank the IDRC for their community service. And I would like to strongly suggest to this board to find ways to work with the IDRC and for this board to suggest to other organizations to do the same. This group of citizen patriots are committed to the defense and protection of Rockbridge County citizens and property. Thank you for your time, Dr. Volpe."
Thank you.
J.D. Rhodes.
Good afternoon, J.D. Goad, South River District. As most of you know, a couple months ago, an incident took place at our business. We were caught in the middle of a social firestorm. This was during the height of the riots in Missouri, and you've seen the evening news. There was burning cars, businesses, and destruction in many communities. Our family-owned business received threats to burn down our building, while our family and employees received death threats at the same time. We immediately contacted our sheriff's department, received some very sound advice, but they were unable to help to provide a deputy to have security on our premises due to their normal staffing levels. We do understand that our sheriff's department are not able to provide security as they are only staffed for their normal duties. We fully support our police departments and do not endorse any defunding the police movements. Through a mutual friend, Mr. Guys heard about our situation and contacted us to offer the IDRC's assistance. He and the IDRC provided 24-hour security in a professional and responsible manner. We were assured that if any problems were to arise, the first thing they were to do was to call the Rockbridge County Sheriff's Department. Also, that they were there only there if our local law enforcement could not get there in time, or if the situation escalated beyond their control. The hopes of the IDRC were that if any person or group were there to cause trouble, that their presence alone would ward off any illegal activity. And in stopping one threat of violence, it would stop any later thought of violence in our area. The IDRC not only provided support in a time of need, they offered us advice on a long-term security plan. This plan was not only for our business's benefit, but also to benefit surrounding businesses, as they have extremely flammable and dangerous chemicals, liquids, and gases. This plan also included how to de-escalate future situations and offer support if the need arises. I can assure you that this is not a group that are toting Confederate flags while waving their guns to intimidate others. They are also not out to create civil disobedience or escalate situations to create violence. They are a highly trained group of individuals that care about the safety of our local community. When we asked them about what compensation they expected, we were told they do not ask for anything in return, as they do not want anyone in our community to think that they have to be paid, excuse me, for their services. That way, anyone that needs support can and will get the help that they needed without financial worries. For these reasons, our families believe that the IDRC is an important resource to our community and deserve our respect and support. They are and will be an asset to our local law enforcement agencies. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Mr. Richardson, you're more than welcome to speak now. Would you prefer to wait till we get to you on the agenda?
Yes, let's do that.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much. I do want to say that the people that made these speeches, I can really feel you guys' passion, and it's just amazing. You guys are standing for something, and that's great. I think that you guys are doing this great. So, yes. Thank you for your service to the Marine. Thank you.
Mr. Lewis, Swink.
I dropped this.
Yes.
Thank you. I just want to give a big thumbs up to the IDRC. I'm 58 years old. I've been around this area for a long time, except for the 4 years that I went to college. I did not go to the military or anything like that, which I think Scott has given me some grief over that, but that's, I mean, we just kid around about that. But we are out to help the public. We are not here to, if this was an organization to overthrow the police, to overthrow our state, I wouldn't be in it. I would not be in it whatsoever. But I'm here to say that this organization is here to help, and whatsoever that we can help. And I do work at Goat's Body Shop. I was there that day that everything went down. And believe me, It was a complete disaster. And Scott and I, we were the last ones to leave on Sunday around 10:30 that morning. And we've had some other episodes since. And truthfully, when it comes to a strict leader, he is a strict leader. When he tells us that we need to be such and such, we do whatever it takes. That if we've got to do this, we do this. Now, I remember one incident. Now, this was with the Lexington Police Department. Now, they talked to us first, and the Lexington Police Department said if anything was to happen, call us first. And we agreed to that. I said, that's not a problem. We'll definitely call you guys first. And nothing occurred. We were there to deter anything that was to take place. We were there to protect property and protect lives. And I'm just here to give a thumbs up to the IDRC.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and we will move on with the agenda. Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes from the July 23rd joint school board meeting, the August 24th meeting, and to look over the corrections to the August 10th, 2020 meeting? If there are no corrections, look for a motion to approve the minutes. Have a motion. Do we have a second? Second. Ms. Harris? Mr. Denny?
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel? Yes. Mr. Lewis? And the chair votes yes. The school's appropriation resolution, Mr. Bolton?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. If you go to your board docs package, you'll find an appropriation resolution. The school board met on September 8th. They approved a similar appropriation resolution, and so we're bringing it forward to the Board of Supervisors for consideration. If there's no questions, my recommendation is to approve the appropriation resolution as presented.
You've heard Mr. Bolton's recommendation. Are there any questions? If not, and I have a motion to approve the resolution. We have a second.
Second.
And a second. Mr. McDaniel? Yes. Mr. Lewis? Mr. Day? Yes. Ms. Ayers? And the chair votes yes. The county appropriation resolution.
Okay, if you go to your board docs package, you'll see there's a memorandum that's included in the financial package. The Commissioner of the Revenue wanted to communicate a series of activities for the month. You can see that he and his team are doing a reconciliation of the delinquent business tax report. They also are doing an audit on their Schedule Cs, the meals, lodging, and business license taxes to ensure compliance. They've also doing their monthly review of the DMV report, so that'd be for the month of September. And he passed along the personal property tax bill to our treasurer, Ms. Travato, on the 21st. And at this point, he's helping citizens with their personal property questions, at least regarding their bills. If there's no questions, I'll transition to Ms. Travato, our treasurer. Some of her activities for the month include going back to a June 26th letter on severely delinquent real estate. Those citizens that received it have until tomorrow, September 15th, to respond. If they don't, she will send that to those properties to a company called Tax, which is the Tax and Authority Consulting Services, PC. And those will begin their path towards potential auction, moving ahead for delinquent taxes. For those citizens or individuals that have to report their estimated tax income, third quarter taxes are due on September 15th, so again tomorrow. As I mentioned earlier, the tax bills went out to citizens, and those payments are due October 5th. And lastly, I'll mention a decree of sale was held on September 3rd, so there were 24 parcels that were considered 12 judicial, 12 non-judicial. With that, I'll transition to the line chart that's in the financial package. What you'll find is that our expenditures are over our anticipated point for this year. And I believe looking back at the data, that is linked to the fact that the data is looking back 3 years. And so sometimes what happens in the past doesn't occur in the future. So at this point, even though the expenditure line is above what was anticipated, there's nothing in our financial reports that indicates that there's anything out of the ordinary as far as being ahead of schedule. With that, there is an appropriation resolution in your package. There are 570 invoices listed on the bills list. I do have a couple that I would like to walk on or get your approval to add to this list. I got these on Friday. They're related to a Verizon bill with the sheriff's office. One is for $1,464.34. The other is for $593.34. So I will make those adjustments if the board approves adding those invoices to this month's bills list. With that, if you take a look at the appropriation resolution on the general fund, we've got money that came in for CARES Act to support the register in the November elections. The state provided $54,155. We also got or anticipate getting some money for the state to support the effort to preserve records down at the clerk of the circuit court clerk's office. $15,820 is anticipated to support that effort. And then we have some money that came in from the private company that was linked to a hazmat incident that occurred earlier this year. And so that money came in. That's going to be passed through to Glasgow Volunteer Fire Department. In addition, you'll see in the Capital Purchases Fund, we actually had 2 payments that came in from Baycorp, our insurance provider, on a sheriff vehicle that was declared a total loss back in FY 2020. The money kind of came in late in the year. And so the sheriff is asking that we appropriate that money to support the replacement of that vehicle. Having said all that, if there's any questions, I'll do my best to answer them. If not, my recommendation is to add those 2 bills that I mentioned, approve the bills list, payment of bills, and the appropriation resolution that's in your board package.
Any questions for Mr. Walton? You've heard his recommendation. You have a motion to approve the resolution. Do we have a second?
Second.
A second, Mr. McCann? Yes. Ms. Ayers?
Yes.
Mr. Day?
Yes.
Mr. Lewis? Aye. And the chair votes yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Walton.
I'm actually going to, I think I have one more to go before I hand off to somebody else. All right, if you go to your board's package, you'll see there's a presentation by our financial advisor, Davenport and Company.
Before you get to that, we
Yes.
need to approve action first.
Oh, yes.
Then we'll get you right back.
Yes.
Ms. Hutton.
Mr. Chairman, typically when we have an employee out of the office for a period of time, it doesn't create any real issues. But in this case, we are going to be considering approval of bond documents in the form of a support agreement for the BRRA's bond issue at a following meeting. So the resolution that's being presented for your consideration will need to be submitted as soon as possible after adoption, if it is adopted, and it needs to be attested by the clerk. So I'm requesting that you appoint Brandy Whitten as acting clerk for the period from September 14th, that's today, through September 28th.
Any questions from Ms. Hutton? Heard a request. Do we have a motion to approve? We have a second. A motion and a second. Mr. Day?
Yes.
Mr. Lewis? Ms. Harris?
Yes.
Ms. McCann? Yes. Chair votes yes. Congratulations. All right, Mr. Bolton.
All right, thanks, Mr. Chairman, for the reminder on that. So tonight we have a presentation from our financial advisor, Davenport and Company. Mr. Archie Taylor is in the back of the room here, and I'll introduce him here shortly. He's going to provide an update on the opportunity for us to refinance or advance refund the 2013 courthouse loan. And just a little background, so the original loan was done in the 2005-2006 timeframe. We came back in 2013 when interest rates were low and did an advanced refunding at that time to generate some savings. And so we have an opportunity to do another advanced refunding or refinancing on 2013 or a portion of the 2013 courthouse loan. A lot of the information that I provided in the agenda report is in the presentation that you all should have received as a handout. There's a couple more that are left up here by Ms. Witten. With that, what I'd like to do is go ahead and bring Archie Taylor up to give his presentation. And what I'll do is I'll share my screen as far as the presentation that you guys have.
You want me to click the arrows as I talk?
Let's do this. Okay, so the arrows are pretty down.
Okay. Okay.
Thanks, Archie.
Thank you. Thank y'all for having me here this evening. With your permission, I'll remove my mask to speak. As y'all are aware, we serve as financial advisor to the county, and from time to time, we review your debt portfolio for opportunities where you can create some interest or cash flow savings. In this particular case, we've identified the 2013s that y'all issued through VRA. As Steve alluded to, they were also refunding bonds at that time in 13, and they were done on a tax-exempt advance refunding basis. If you turn to page 1, that'll give you a little bit of an overview on the refunding candidate. In this particular case, at the start of calendar year 2018, the ability to tax exempt advance refund municipal debt went away. But it's interesting that taxable rates have continued to fall as well. So we have a unique opportunity that we've been monitoring over the past year or two related to the 13s. And as we've gotten closer and closer to the call date and interest rates have continued to fall, it's that much more beneficial to refund those bonds. Right now, if you look at the bottom of page 1, and I'm looking at the bottom right-hand corner for the page numbers, we have maturities that go out through final maturity of November 1 of 2035. Okay, so roughly 15 years remaining. Okay. The current principal amount outstanding is $8.5 million, and the coupons on those bonds range anywhere from 2 1/8 on up to 5%. Okay. If you average them together, you'll see here in a minute, that's roughly a little over 4% on average. And we're looking at rates that are much, much lower than that at present. If you turn to page 2, I'm going to talk through the matrix on the left first and then switch to the right. I just wanted to note at the top of this page, we're calling this the level savings approach. We actually ran 2 scenarios for you to consider. And let me pause for a minute. This evening is for informational purposes only and for discussion, so feel free to ask me questions along the way. And you don't have anything related to this refinancing in your packet to take action on tonight. We're just looking to provide the overview of the opportunity for you. Our plan is to come back to you, if you so desire, at your meeting on the 28th and ask for formal action if you wanted to move forward. And that would meet VRA's deadline for existing exposure that's already in their pool. So on the left-hand side matrix, this is a summary of the refunding candidate. At the very top between lines 1 through 6, that's a summary overview of the bonds as they are today. In the middle there, that's what we're looking at projected, what the refunding bonds might produce. And below that is sort of a, again, preliminary estimate of what those savings could be. So at the top, again, 8.5 million outstanding there on line 2, coupons ranging from 2.125% to 5%. Your call date, because when VRA issued those bonds in the public markets back in 2013, there's the standard 10-year no call that the public investors typically look for. So that's what makes this an advance refunding. We're refunding it in advance of that 11/1/23 call date.
Could you page the document forward?
Oh,
So that way-
I asked you and I still didn't do it.
Thanks.
Thank you. Sorry about that. So again, the matrix on the left is just the summary overview. The top, the refunded bonds, 8.5 million, 2.125% to 5% are the coupons that are fixed on those bonds. The call date's November 1, 2023. There is no penalty assessed for prepayment. And we would look at refunding maturities from the November 24th maturity through the 2035th maturity. If you look down at the next line, starting on 8, we are not looking to extend this debt. This is not like a 30-year mortgage. You're 20 years in, you want to refinance it for another 30-year mortgage. That's not what we're doing here. We're doing it for match maturity, not extending the debt, if that makes sense. And you can see on line 10, 1.8%. That is what the current markets look like today. If we were to move forward and refund this today, that's roughly what would be generated for your new interest rate. We've got a little bit of time to run. The VRA pool does not price until on or about October 28th. So we'll continue to monitor this with staff and report back to you by the time you take action, if you can, or by the time you consider taking action at the next meeting. Down below on line 14 through 18, this provides you an overview of the projected savings. So over the next 15, 16 fiscal years, you would look to save approximately $974,000. And that equates to roughly $60,000 a year. On a present value basis, present value in that back in today's dollars, that's roughly 10% of the refunded principal amount of 8.5. And what we typically look at as a good bellwether for did we get a good savings here is 3% benchmark. So right now we're a little over 3 times what the industry standard benchmark would be. And that will be, the reason why I'm pointing that out is because that would be one of the proposed parameters that you would consider in your resolution at your next meeting. So we'll talk through a sensitivity analysis here shortly to give you some perspective on what rates could do to drive savings down to that level, and then ask for your guidance again, whether it's this meeting or next meeting. Is 3% the right number, or is 4% the right number? What are y'all's feelings on the level of savings you'd like to achieve? On the right-hand matrix, the net prior bond debt service, that is what you're currently paying. If you did nothing, you would continue to pay that stream of debt service in fiscal year 21 and beyond. 21, you've already made the first November, or you will have made the November 1st, 2020 payment by the time these bonds are issued. So your next and last debt service payment for fiscal year 21 would be in May. Okay. The next column over, if we were to move forward and refund these bonds, that's the new stream of debt service you'd recognize, and that would be 11.3 million over the total life. And then the last column, the annual savings, compares one flow to the other cash flow. And you can see where that $60,000 a year on average savings and the total $974,000 comes from.
I'm gonna stop there and ask if you have any questions about anything I've hit on that page, because the next page is gonna look just like it. It's just tweaked slightly.
The question I have.
Yes, sir.
And I realize you're going sensitivity analysis and stuff like that. And I guess it's maybe more for Steve, but it's always good to save money. The gross savings of 974. The other option would be you save time and pay the debt off earlier. But I'm assuming that the debt prior, the bond debt service, we don't save about maybe a year and a half. You know, for our next meeting or whatever, I would like to know that. If we kept payments the same, how much time could we
That was gonna be
save?
my exact question, does DRA allow that? You know, is that in the process that they have, is that allowed?
I'm not aware of the.
Do you mind if I, so what I'm here, the first question is, could we maybe keep the same level of budget debt service and just pay this off sooner? That's what I understand.
The savings be from that?
Right, so we can actually run that and put all your savings on the back end. I want to point out though, if you did nothing and you continued paying your debt service the way it is and did not refinance it, in 3 years from now, that would be the call date. After that period of time, and it would, you'd have to be disciplined about it, setting aside the additional monies each year to pay it off early. You could try to, again, put additional monies aside and just pay it off after 3 years from now. However, if you do the refunding, you're going to have another 10-year no-call period. So you wouldn't be able to pay it off again for another 10 years from 2020. So that'd be 2030 would be your next call date.
So they let you prepay every 10 years?
There's an opportunity, but you'd have to, if you're going to pay them off in full, you'd have to essentially have 900 times 6 years, right? So $1 million a year for 6 years, that's roughly $6 million at that point, if you wanted to just pay it off, or you could accelerate. By virtue of setting up an escrow to defease it, because you're not going to be able to give VRA, if your debt service is 900,000 a year, give them an extra 100,000. It's not going to work like going to the bank and paying your mortgage. You're paying bond investors essentially. So it's a little bit different. I just want to make sure you're aware that you reset the clock on that 10-year no call by moving forward with the refund. But what we can do, and you'll see on the next page where we're doing it up front. So we're accelerating those savings by virtue of pushing off a little bit, just in case there was an idea that you wanted to utilize some monies today toward setting aside in your fund balance, for example, for the next few years to see how things sort of evolve during our new environment. It may be helpful. So let's flip to page 3 real quickly. This is the same methodology on this page. The only difference is you'll notice in the green chart on the right-hand side, we have structured it so that about 217,000 over the next 3 fiscal years, or 652,000, could be sort of structured in a mode where you could put that back into your budget on the front end. So you take some of that $900,000 and shift it up front. To your point, Mr. McDaniel, we could actually run that another way and show it being pushed off to the end. And it doesn't impact your present value savings as much. It's down slightly. If you look at line 17 on the left-hand side, 9.8%, you were at 9.9 on the previous page. it's not a huge impact by shifting that. Again, we could go the other way and show a backloaded savings approach. So you don't recognize any cash flow benefit on the front end, but rather you pay it off early. And so you could still do it with the refunding. I just wanted to make sure I pointed out that you're starting that 10-year no call period. Okay. If there are no questions, we'll move to page 4 and 5. And these are to illustrate, like I said, VRA does not price their pool until the end of October. And so that's roughly 50, 60 days, somewhere in there. We're just shy of, it's right at 50 days, somewhere in there. And rates could do anything between now and the election. That's one of the big things that VRA and their counterpart for the schools projects, VPSA, they are honed in to trying to get their bonds priced ahead of the election, which is part of their normal schedule, but I guess it's just more important this year. These charts are to say, we don't know what rates are going to do. We know they're going to move around between now and October 28th, which is why we're going to come back with proposed parameters in a resolution and ask you to help us figure out where you want to set your mark. But interest rates are at record lows, historical lows. And if you turn the page, this is the taxable interest rate. Same thing here. We've seen them hit all new lows. We've seen them come back up 20 basis points in the past month. So they can bounce around for the next 30, 40, 60 days. Page 6 gives you some perspective on that movement, that market movement. So column B, we selected the level savings approach just to run the sensitivity for you. That's under column B. So if you were to look at the level savings page, this column B on page 6 would tie back to that 974,000 at the bottom, 60,000 a year. 9.94% present value on line 3. And we said to ourselves, what if interest rates just move up 10%? That's under column C. So it's roughly $100,000 difference. If you go to column D and rates were to actually come down from current level by 10 basis points, you'd actually add $100,000 to your savings. So that just gives you it's fairly linear, a fairly linear analysis for every 10 basis points, about $100,000. Now, one other thought would be, why don't we wait? And as time goes by, 18 months from now, let's say for some reason, interest rates have hung in there and they're at the same they are today. It becomes a more efficient refinancing because you have less time to escrow monies to hit that call date. And so we look under column E, and that's what that is assuming, halfway between now and the call date, or roughly 18 months. But we know that the markets are going to bounce around. And if they bounce up just 40 basis points, it's break even to today's rates. Okay. If it goes up any further than 40 basis points, then what we're saying is, as of today, you would have had better savings picture. Under column F, this is assuming we wait 3 years and interest rates stay at today's levels, and you would be able to refund this on a tax exempt basis. Interest rates would just have to go up 1.5% to break even to the day. So again, it's the old, you got a bird in the hand in today's market. Any questions on that? Okay. So I got one more sensitivity for you on page 7. This goes back to that present value percentage benchmark on line 5. Again, column B is the current market at 9.9%. And we said, what do rates have to do to drive it down to 5% benchmark? Oh, I'm sorry. Here we go. I'm used to looking at the book, so I apologize. So under column C, if we were going to say an acceptable level would be 5% present value savings, interest rates would have to bump up 50 basis points from today's levels. If we set our benchmark at 4%, interest rates could bump up 60 basis points from today's levels, and we'd be fine. And then lastly, the 3% industry benchmark, interest rates could bump up 70%. Now, that's all well and good, but if you look at the dollars, you have to be comfortable. Are we good with locking in $20,000 a year and getting that 3% present value mark? Or do we feel more comfortable with 4%, for instance? So that's the question we'll sort of ponder until next time. But wanted to give you that perspective. The last couple pages, this just gives you a little bit of an idea of the different maturities and the couponing in the existing bonds. What can happen is if we want to hit that 4% benchmark or 3% benchmark, we might be right on the border of it come time to price the bonds. And it would be the question of being able to authorize staff, the board would authorize staff to work with Davenport and VRA. If that were to be the case, and we still wanted to capture those savings through this pool program, what maturities could we pull out to make it a more efficient financing? So right here on page 8, on the right-hand side, you can see a couple of these numbers are in brackets. So on a present value basis, they're producing negative savings, so dis savings. It's dragging on the efficiency of the refinancing. So we could pull those out on the next page, and you can see by pulling those out, you have less of a drag on the refinancing. So that just helps your present value benchmark. And then lastly, the timeline. We're here this evening, just again, as an informational meeting, brief you on the opportunity, and we would expect to come back on September 28th and have a resolution for you if that's your direction this evening, if we should work with bond counsel to bring a resolution back to you at the next meeting.
Are there any questions from Mr. Taylor? Questions?
Yes, sir.
Forecast.
My hope is that they'll hang in there between now and October 28th when the bonds price. I don't know is the answer to that question. I mean, there's a lot of uncertainty with it being an election year and being a contested election year, but we can,
It's not just for the next month, but I mean, what are you looking at over the next 2 to 3 years? with rates?
again, I don't have that handy. I just don't know. That's the answer. I'm sorry. There's different reports that'll tell you this, that, or the other, but it's anybody's guess. That's why we would recommend review the information, provide some questions through staff. We're happy to come back and have some additional analysis if needed at the next meeting, if it would be helpful to set that parameter. If you think 3% or 4% would be the way to go, but the point is, if you're not going to hit your benchmark that you set by way of resolution, VRA is not going to do the refund. So if you say I want 4% and they hit 3.9, it's not going to execute on October 28th.
Yeah, I was more looking at your timing. If it was 2022 and we did it for 2023, that's where I was coming up with what your projections for rates. I know you've got, it could go up 39 basis points or 3 basis points, but what's it, what
Yeah, we don't forecast rates because we don't know what they're going to do. I don't have a better answer for you. What we've shown here is if they were to stay at today's rates, what would the market have to do to break even with today's results? That's sort of the best we can do at today's rates.
Any other questions?
So, Mr. Chairman, if there's no other questions, what staff is looking for is a nod to continue to move forward on this potential opportunity. And what we can do is the Finance Committee can have further discussions about setting some parameters that we believe are to the advantage of Rockbridge County in the long term. We'll need to work with our bond counsel, Daniel Loro, I think fairly quickly next week, and making a decision, on being able to set parameters, but also to be prepared for the meeting on the 28th. So as long as
Does anyone have any objections?
to moving forward? Okay, thank you. Archie, thanks. I appreciate it.
We have a request from the Glasgow First Aid and Life Saving Crew. Keith?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Steve, you want to stop sharing this? All right, so we had a request. Well, I'll back up to August the 10th. We received a letter from the Glasgow Life Saving and First Aid Crew. Essentially, it was emailed to you all, myself, and Mr. Suter, I believe, that said they were having some trouble due to some lack of membership, one being COVID-19 response, and then some not participating, that they were only able to cover one night a week with the volunteer duty crew. And also, just as a reminder, we do have career staff there. 7 days a week, 6A to 6P. So what we'll be talking about is nighttime coverage from 6P to 6A. So we received that letter stating that they were having some difficulty. For certain, they could cover one night a week with six nights being open. I'd contact the captain, which we do have in the audience, Captain Sherry Wilcox and President Larry Mayo behind me. So we set up a meeting with their executive committee to kind of discuss this. Since they sent us a letter, and come out of that meeting with them taking to their membership on a business meeting September 1 to request 24-hour staffing from the board to move forward with that. And that would have been a 24, 48-hour rotation with our staff, potentially, is what we would have presented to you all tonight. In addition to that, we would have had to make that work. We would have requested the hiring 2 full-time personnel to make that happen. Since then, at their meeting September 1, they did vote to do just that. This past Thursday, they had a special call meeting at the rescue squad, and they come out of that meeting rescinding the 24-hour request for staffing, that they've had some members step up and want to cover the night calls, the remaining night calls, but also to codify that request to the board to, as an email was provided to you all by Captain Wilcox, to just have Rockbridge staffing staff at night only when needed. So with that, I'm kind of not really going on the agenda here because it really doesn't pertain a whole lot to the request since the staffing was changed. One of the things that would be noted is that we would need to continue having some bunkering facilities in the rescue squad building should that be part of the request for staffing. But my recommendation is it's going to be difficult to provide staffing on an as-needed basis for nighttime coverage, just simply because we don't have the personnel to do that. That we would still have to hire going into an unknown varying schedule would be difficult to provide that on a regular, consistent basis. So With that, we would still have to hire some folks to, at least two probably, to make that happen. And it'll be difficult to do so not knowing what the schedule is going to be. So one of the things that that has happened since then, I've had conversations with Chief Hill with the Glasgow Fire Department, and he has too offered some assistance as needed to provide drivers. Their fire department, we attempted to put a meeting together tonight prior to, or over the weekend prior to this meeting, so we could potentially have a plan for you guys there. But their business meeting is tonight as well, and he has requested to share this with his members prior to working with the rescue squad to make sure that his members are on board with that. So my recommendation based on this is to kind of hit pause on this request until we can see maybe what the fire department can do, and also recommend that the squad would provide us with a schedule to ensure that the night duty or the night calls are being covered until we can revisit this. I mean,
You've heard the chief's recommendation. You think you'll be able to come back in 2 weeks? Or
we can attempt to do so. I think we can get work with the fire department. We should be able to set a meeting to do that. If not, if we can't come make it in 2 weeks based on timing, do the first of the month or something like that.
Thank y'all for continuing to work. We appreciate the volunteers, and we know how tough it is, and we want to help and support as much as we can. Thank you for looking at it realistically and hopefully continuing to try to find a solution. Thank you.
Any questions at all for the officers here?
Yeah.
Here.
Good.
I just have 3 questions. The nighttime calls or the nighttime duties, so is it my understanding that they now have someone for every single night?
Captain, would you like to?
So it's probably about 90% covered right now for September. October, we have 4 trainee members who either need to complete EVOC or test for their EMT. We anticipate that happening between the end of September, the first part of October. Should that happen, we will be covered except for Saturday nights. And we'll probably discuss that at our next business meeting, which has been the standard. You know, when there have been a few nights here and there, people are out of town or that kind of thing, we'll kind of fill those in. But as long as all of those people pass their testing, we should have 2 and 3 people on most nights for the assigned free time.
And is that night call duty from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m.?
No, sir, our duty crew runs from 8 p.m. to 5 a.m.
So what happens to the time?
So historically, if there was a call between 6 p.m. and 8 a.m., it's kind of open to anyone that's available volunteer-wise. If we have a career staff that's still there, right, and it happens on a frequent basis. If someone's there at 6 p.m., 6:01, 6:02, sometimes we get calls that the career staff will take that if they're still there. But from that open period, it's typically whoever's available to run that. But their night call does not take, their night crew duty does not start until 8, excuse me, until 8 p.m.
I believe Captain said that there have been several new members that have taken training. Have you had a lot of new members? I guess I'm wondering what has changed, because as I read the comments here, over the last 15 months, the failure to respond rate's been around 33%. So what changed in a matter of a month that you feel like you will be able to hit the failure to respond rate? What we're really happy to get some members who have been not answering calls for one reason or another. And after we had our meeting September 1st, we had some other people bring up some comments and stuff, and maybe we're not at the meeting on September 1st. We did a special call meeting on the following Thursday, which was last Thursday. At that point, a lot of those members decided they would come back and run multiple nights per month. And we started putting a lot of those trainees on those nights. A couple of members from other agencies were willing to come back and run a couple of nights for us. So with that in mind, we do now have the schedule covered, like Sherry said, except for one night per week at this point. We do still have a couple of members out, maybe because of COVID, maybe 3 members at least because of COVID. So once that goes away, we get a vaccine, that will go into another night for us to go. And there's trying to recruit more members. It's difficult to recruit members. It's like a full-time job. People like myself that work 40, 50 hours a week, they take the same training that a paid staff member does. If you keep that membership up, keep the training up, it's really, really hard to recruiting members to be able to do that. They have the time and the willingness and the desire to do that.
And what would be the plan for the one night that you don't have covered this Saturday night?
It's usually been in the past, been sort of a volunteer thing. The captain will send out an email and saying we don't have any coverage, or that a certain person with coverage could cover possibly through midnight, if someone else could cover after that. So on those one-off nights, we've usually been able to cover that. And then I think also our captain has been, if we didn't have anybody, she would do it with our second due on the initial tender. Make sure we had someone on the way. So if we didn't have coverage, someone would be on the way to take care of that problem.
How is the relationship between the volunteers and the paid staff?
I personally haven't seen any problem with it. I mean, I would get along well with them. I know the captain does. So like I say, there's never a dispute. Maybe somebody does something somebody doesn't like. Everybody's, in the same building and doing the same things. You're probably going to rub somebody the wrong way at some point. But overall, I think from day one, since we've had paid staff in the building, it's gone really, really well. In my opinion.
Yes, sir. For the most part, we've had a couple of issues come up, through since day one, and I'm speaking more from the county staff. We did have a period of time where we were kind of locked into certain parts of the building that we need to go in, but I think that's all been worked out with good communication and the leadership that's here tonight. Kudos to them, and like Larry mentioned, it is difficult for folks to come out. It is a lot of hours required over and above their normal job to be able to do this. So kudos to the ones that are doing it, and that have been doing it. We've got a lot of great volunteers in the county that do it on a daily basis, and that do a really good job. But yeah, for the most part.
Being that it's in my area, I just want to ensure that we're providing the service to the citizen. Whatever the fire and rescue committee can work with Chief Ramsey and first aid to come up with a plan. Certainly, if they're able to do it on their own, I think that is commendable, and I thank you for the dedication and trying to work it. If it's not, unfortunately, I feel like we probably have to look at what we can do on our end to ensure the service is being provided to the citizens. When they make the phone call, they need help, they need to know that somebody's around.
Sure. And that's one of the things that I mentioned about sending the schedule so that we can see and make sure, we take their word for it for certain, but since, we got the letter and then we went from 24-hour staffing requests back to as needed basis, I think it would be good to do that. And then again, meeting with the fire department, working with those folks that's another pool of personnel that we can potentially use as well.
Thank you for your communication. It's really helpful if you don't know what the problems are. So keep us informed. That's good, as Mr. McMahon said, that's what we want to do to make sure our citizens are taken care of. And thank you for that. So if you need help, please reach out.
Okay, the Rockbridge Volunteer Fire and Rescue Officers Association.
All right. So as you recall, we've discussed this several times. And back at the June 22nd meeting of the Board of Supervisors, we had presented to you all, well, presented a couple of times the draft of the resolution that was drafted from our office, Mr. Suter. And then it was presented to us by the RERG and RCFA that they would like to draft their own and create their own association, which was approved. That request was, and they were tasked with having that draft document to you all by August 31st, which they did. They did meet that, or have it to our office by August 31st, and we submit that to you all for review. Since that time, it's been great. I think the RERG, the RCFA has been working together. The two presidents worked on drafting the association constitution and bylaws that you all have had in front of you, and has since both met. The RCFA just had one change on from the original document, which was to incorporate the volunteer into the title for it to be titled Rockbridge Volunteer Emergency Officers Association. Both groups have approved this internally, and since then the RERG has met and the RCFA has met both. One last time, they have, at the end of their meetings, they have decided not to schedule any further meetings of the separate groups, and then move forward with this association. Based on this document, I recommend that we move forward with this, as it meets everything that was intended initially for the groups to work together, have a monthly meeting. Just note that one of the differences with this document than the one that was presented is that this one has two treasurers, one for would have been the RERG for the EMS side, and then one for the fire. So they would have two treasurers that be a part of the officers here with this group. The meeting night for this association is the third Tuesday. It's selected to be the third Tuesday of the month, which is currently the same night as the commission meeting, because the idea was that if we move forward with this, that we would, as the county, pull out of the current agreement with the two cities as far as the commission is concerned. As per the agreements written, that is how that put that on a 90-day notice. One locality would step away from that. In addition to this, and the commission as far as notified on the agenda item here, that one further action is recommended to take place. And as we've talked about before with the terminology in the Chapter 14 of the county code, where the commission, the RERG, and the RCFA is referenced, that language would be replaced with the Rockbridge Volunteer Emergency Officers Association.
Questions, concerns?
Thank you. Thank you all.
What was the main reason for two truckers?
To keep the from what the groups from the meetings I was in, just to keep that simplicity and the money separated between the fire association, as their money kind of comes and goes for the fire training, that kind of thing, and that would be one of the things that would remain the same throughout the transition. from the RERG and RCFA to this association. Yes, sir.
If the fire department is gonna have training, does that have to be approved? By this group?
You mean like the firefighter 1 and firefighter 2? It doesn't necessarily have to be approved. The training has to be approved through fire programs. So there's a request submitted by the training officer that would go to fire programs saying we want to have a firefighter 1 class, that kind of thing.
Are you talking like the state fire?
Yes, yes, sir. So it would be approved at that level, and then the training officer, as it is now, kind of provides an update and requests particular classes that may be wanted or needed based on the department's needs, members. And then it's kind of all compiled and then submitted to the state for approval to have these classes. Now we can have certain classes without approval. Some are funded through fire programs and some are not, which is what the $10,000 a year that are used for. Same with the EMT class with the Office of EMS. We have to submit for approval before we can host those classes.
So it would have to be approved by the fire association. Officers Association.
To have a class, no, sir. It would probably be mentioned there, but once the training officer kind of sets the training, and for years we used to have 2 firefighter 1 classes a year. It was known there was one going to be in the spring, one going to be in the fall. The last couple of years, due to participation, it's only been 1. If it was shown that the need there for more training, then we would absolutely, have more classes to do that. But a lot of it's based on interest and folks available to take those classes.
I just have one question about the difference. But the 2 differences basically between the document they provided and the document. One is the chief treasurer, but I'm not sure I really understand because it's one organization. And we would be dealing with one organization, not 2 within that organization. I think it's important that they realize that. And then the second thing is, it talks about how if for some reason they can't get along, they'll reverse diagram. But it's my understanding, if the supervisors move forward as recognizing this one organization, there's other 2 organizations that would no longer be recognized by supervisors, correct?
Correct. If we move forward with the documentation there, but one of the things that I've noticed and I've picked up on with it's been a good working relationship so far between the 2 groups. And like I say, they formed nominating committees for their officers, potential officers, to move forward with the October meeting. I feel like anything could happen for sure, but it is written in there. But I feel like it's going to be a good thing, and I don't really see it going back the other way. I could be totally wrong, but it's been a very good working relationship thus far. Once we got to the 2 presidents working together and not scheduling, the next RERG RCFA meeting, to me is a good sign that we can move forward with this. But if something like that were to happen, then that would have to be a request to go back. I think we'd go back to, as far as the chapter 14, recognizing, what group we would recognize, that would have to be probably a request coming from the groups to do that.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I was kind of getting at. I don't understand why it's in the document, because it wouldn't be a group to refer back to at that point.
Correct.
Mm-hmm. Now, do they have any type of articles of incorporation or any bylaws or anything like that?
So the document that was sent is considered the Constitution and bylaws. It's all in one document.
Isn't that unusual? For it to be in one document?
take it back at the next meeting and,
I would, I like what you've done. I would only suggest that this document needs some editing and the two need to be separated. And if we could get that done and then vote on it at the next meeting.
I mean, I would think that our fire and rescue committee can work with staff and work with the two, to ensure this merger goes as best it can. And with our county attorney to make sure that the dotted. That's something we're willing to do.
You're willing to do that? I see heads nodding, so we'll let them take that away. All right, thank you.
so we're just so that I'm clear, will we need to come back on this, or as long as they're good with it?
Well, we'll need to make it formal by a vote. I think that was just the, if they're good with it, I don't see other people object to it.
Okay.
Are you clear what you're bringing back?
The articles of incorporation and then the bylaws in a separate document.
Yeah,
Okay,
I just want-
yeah. Okay.
All right, thank you.
Can I clarify, this board does not have any, your plan with everything being cleaned up and separated, the documents, or repairs.
That's my understanding.
I would just say that if any member has a question, they get it to one of you by tomorrow so that you know what you need to ask for.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Okay, we're gonna just skip that because we got Mr. Richardson's been waiting patiently. Ms. Hoffman?
Yes,
For consideration of the Travis Richardson notice of claim.
This agenda item is to consider a notice of claim submitted by Travis Richardson. His notice of claim is, excuse me, you mind?
No.
And I'm echoing, it's driving me crazy. The notice of claim is included in your agenda. It is related to time served in the Rockbridge Regional Jail and the Rappahannock Regional Jail. Mr. Richardson submitted a claim for $75,000 in compensatory damages and punitive damages in an unspecified amount. He alleged over-detention, false imprisonment, deliberate indifference, negligence, and intentional tort, infliction of emotional distress, illegal seizure based on unlawful policy, violation of civil rights under the 14th Amendment pursuant to 42 USC section 1983 and violation of section 53.1187. He was provided notification in writing that the claim would be considered by the board at this evening's meeting, and he was advised he could attend in person or participate electronically, and he is present to speak to his claim. All of the facts and allegations are related to the regional jail, which is a separate entity governed by the Rockbridge Regional Jail Commission and is not under the authority or control of the Board of Supervisors. There are no allegations that would attribute responsibility or liability to the county. So without waiving any other potential defenses that might be available to the county, I recommend denial of the claim for these reasons. And I'll be glad to try to answer any questions.
Mr. Richardson,
Good evening.
thank you for your patience.
Oh, no problem. Forgive my informality. I'm not used to government stuff. Basically, you know, I think what happened was it was a miscommunication with the wrong, I guess, entity. I guess I need to address this with the jail commission more so, I believe would be, is that correct? The jail commission, right? It's just the fact that Rockbridge Regional Jail, they have actually a lack of policy. There's basically what happened was they say that they held me after I was supposed to be released on my release date. They held me because they said I had to go to do time in another jurisdiction. But the problem with that is 53.1-187 of Virginia Code. It basically states that anytime you do, no matter where you do it, it counts. You know, it doesn't matter the jurisdiction that you're at. Well, Rockbridge Regional Jail tried to say that it did, and they also tried to say that they were gonna quote unquote bank my credits just in case I came back on a potential probation violation or a potential crime. If you ask me, that's kind of basically saying, you know, saying, hey, you're gonna fail, or punishing you for something that you didn't did. So there's also, you know, there's actually case law on this, and there's actually a case, I don't have it with me, but I think it was in the thing that I sent, but where the court upheld, as well as the attorney general upheld, that it was this very, pretty much the same situation, upheld that it is unconstitutional to bank people's jail credits. Yet Rockbridge Regional Jail is still doing this. There's also another thing in the law that says that all jailers have to, here, I got it right here, actually. It's 53.1-116 mandates that the records and policies a jailer must keep. And I have an email from the major of the jail basically telling me they have no written policy about this policy that they're enforcing. And that itself is a violation of, I guess, Virginia code. And, you know, I guess I want to bring it to people's attention, and, you know, I'd like something done about it. I don't know if you guys could help me. You know, I was actually aware of that when I came tonight, that the claim was made with the wrong, I guess, entity. But I was coming before you guys and hoping that you guys maybe could point me in the right direction or something, so we can help change this policy within the jail, because it can really set the jail up for a lot of trouble in the future, you know. And there's other people in there right now that don't know the law like I did, and they're stuck in there and they're supposed to be released. I know that for a fact.
Well, we appreciate you bringing it to our attention. Unfortunately, we're the wrong group.
I know.
And I would recommend you get on the agenda for the jail commission.
Okay. Now, would that be something similar to this?
Be similar to this.
Yes. Okay.
They're already aware of this.
Okay.
I've provided them copies of it.
Okay. I thank you for you guys' time tonight.
Sure,
I really
thank you.
appreciate it.
All right, we'll take a 5-minute break and then start the Resource Authority meeting. Oh.
Yeah, I'm just not sure. Yeah. I don't disagree.
Do we need to vote?
I'm
we're not-
sorry. I'll have to put you in.
That we're denying
No,
consideration?
You have to vote on the, yes, on this matter. Yes.
Okay,
You
so we
do.
need a
I
motion.
do need a vote.
Deny, yeah.
Make a motion to.
Do we have a second? Second. Mr. McCain?
Yes.
Mr. Lewis? Ms. Ayers? Mr. Day?
Yes.
Chair votes yes, and we'll take a 5-minute recess and then start BRA and reconvene after BRA.
I didn't get your back to do it there, so. Do you send me in? Are you by yourself? So can I leave some of my stuff? I'll have to check out the things you're good at that, because I really don't have anything to do. I was planning on doing signature blocks, but I don't have them yet.
Sorry, yeah, the microphone wasn't picking anything up. I apologize. Should deactivated. Why I can't.
That is it's kind of been abandoned. It is, there have having it available if and when a regional project might come along. So it's never been recommended to disband the regional IDA. However, some of the members, the appointed, have felt like they really didn't have a project and didn't have anything to do. And so they were just, they don't come to meetings. They can't get meetings scheduled to even dissolve. So I became aware of that, I guess, back when we were having the discussions about completing these long form disclosures. And we are going to see if we can form a plan of action when we're not in the middle of crises. Well, pretty much day to day.
Yeah.
The boards and committees meeting electronically now, or are they?
Actually, most of them, I think, have returned to in-person meetings. The BZA meeting was an in-person meeting. Not sure about the 911 board. The EDA, I think, has gone back to in-person meetings. Fire and Rescue Commission, I think they're making electronic meeting available, but having in-person as well. I think the same is true of the PSA. Planning Commission is doing in-person meetings, although for one reason or another, we occasionally have a member who's participating electronically. MSA, I don't know.
So the long form, EDA, Morning Service Authority, and PSA.
No, just EDA and IDA.
Oh, I thought you said.
Well, I was guessing, but Brandy said that was not correct.
Well, how do you feel about raising the building code appeals from 30 to 50? And the EDA from 30 to 50, and then the IDA 50. But the IDA is not missing and it's not meeting, or they are meeting? I guess if they're not meeting.
They're not functioning right now.
Right, in case they do meet,
Right.
they'll. Gotcha.
I'm fine with your thoughts. My only question would be, and it's not a lot of money we're talking about, but how's it impact the budget? Where is it going within the budget?
Steve?
Well,
Most like Mr. McDaniel said, it's not in the budget, but we'd have to do a calculation to see, you know, where within the budget we potentially can find it. I'd have to do the math.
So it's,
Especially
for the EDA, it's $240 a person a year. So how many people are on there?
Seven.
Seven. So that's 1680, something like that, $1,700. It's not in the budget, but I don't think it'll break the budget.
I wouldn't think I'll just hold it what Mr. Deck proposed to be able to pay $2,500.
Right.
And I'm fine with this proposal. I just didn't know.
But that, could we find $2,500? All right. Do you want to make that a motion, Mr. Dex?
Yes,
Okay.
we need to hear it again. or-
Yeah, please.
That we raised the IDA.
Wait, I'll bring, if you want, I'll bring back separate resolutions because they're all created under
Okay.
different
So will
statutes.
you bring those resolutions back for the next meeting?
Yes, sir.
Okay, is that good with everyone?
Well, can I ask, I mean, we have, what is the justification for the local, I mean, if you look at who's left, it's $30. I just want to make sure local Board of Building Code appeals, are we okay with that being $30 a meeting?
They can only meet twice a year,
If that.
if that.
But what's the justification for them being 30 and everybody being?
Well, there is 30 because
I'm
when
I'm sorry, I
you have
thought
to,
that was in my motion.
It was.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, I
Yeah.
apologize.
The only difference I think with them is that the fees, the filing fees help cover
right.
their compensation. So I can talk with Kenny and see about increasing the filing fees that would still cover their increase.
So we're only talking about 3. The Board of Zoning Appeals, Building Code, the EDA, and the IDA. Okay, so if you bring those resolutions back, that would be wonderful.
I heard BZA. I see BZA's at 50.
It's building code appeals.
Building Code Appeals, I'm sorry.
And then the regional IDA.
Right.
Where is that?
Is that, I didn't see it on here.
It's not on here because they're
Oh,
so,
it's not in the back.
oh,
Okay.
It's on the second
Oh.
page.
Okay, but what about the social services? That's a 30,000.
now that one is a little different. It is a regional body. So to make a change would require all 3 localities. And I believe that the current compensation is not something that I've never been part of setting compensation for the Social Services Board. So I'm thinking that maybe as a regional body, they do that themselves. So I have to look into that one a little bit further if you'd like to consider it.
The MSA and the PSA, is that paid by us or is that also paid?
They pay their own, but the
Yeah.
Board of
So that we don't
Supervisors
have to-
has to
No, and
approve.
they came and requested increases within the last year.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So we good on that? Okay. Consideration Unstep Collection Center lease agreement.
You want me to come up or just talk from here?
You can, wherever you're comfortable. This should be
Well,
fairly quick.
Okay, this is a green box site on Route 39, about 0.5 miles west of its intersection with State Route 252. It has been an unstaffed collection site for years. There's a map included in your packet showing its location. In 2019, VDOT vacated a significant amount of right-of-way along Route 39 that had been proposed for road improvements, and I guess they decided against the project. They vacated that right-of-way and executed a quitclaim deed to the adjoiners, Jennifer and Justin Showalter. So they own the surrounding land. As a result of that action, they requested to be paid rent now that they're the owners of the underlying fee for that piece of collection site. So corresponding with the rent that is paid by the county for the Beverleys down on South River, they either ask or it was suggested that a fair amount would be $750 every 6 months, payable the 1st of January and July, subject to annual appropriation. We have a lease agreement attached and a resolution. If the board approves, then the requested action would be to adopt the proposed resolution. But I would ask that you that we make one quick change to that. Paragraph 2, that the county administrator is also authorized to execute the lease agreement. If we could include fiscal services director there, county administrator and fiscal services director are authorized to execute.
Okay. Anybody have any questions about that lease?
We've already got boxes there.
Yeah.
Yes, they've been there for quite some time. This is just kind of a change in ownership that has resulted in needing the lease.
Is there a motion to approve the lease?
I'm going to approve with supplement modification.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
Mr. Lewis?
Aye.
Mr. McCann?
Yes.
Ms. Harris? Mr. Day?
Yes.
Chair votes yes.
Thank you.
And before you sit down, do we want to readopt or schedule a public hearing for the readoption of a contingency of government, continuity of government ordinance? It's set to expire, what, next month?
October 5th.
Right.
So in order to have set the public hearing prior to its expiration, we would need to hold it at the next board meeting. I suggest it because some people are still operating under the modifications allowed by this, but more importantly, we don't know what might happen over the next 6 months. Things may change. It allows the board and your agencies and authorities some flexibility in determining whether or not you might have to go back to electronic meetings or make adjustments in policies and procedures or close for a period of time. Whatever the situation might warrant, this gives you some flexibility to do
that it matters. I'm completely supporting it.
I was just looking at the,
But you know, with Robbie, isn't.
So I believe it's 81 right through there. But like I say, they're within a mile of each other, so if you're looking for a way to match them up, I would.
okay, so, and Herring in place of Robbie Faulkner. We got a motion.
So moved.
Wait a second.
Second.
All right, Mr. Lewis.
Aye.
Mr. McDaniel.
Yes.
Ms. Harris.
Yes.
Mr. Day.
Yes.
Chair votes yes. And that leaves David Hawkins in place of Jerry Locker.
He used to be in Long Street.
So,
He's not in Longwood?
No, he lives in the same, there was some magisterial redistricting done.
he moved, I thought.
Well, he's in Carr Street now.
Right, he moved.
Yeah, well, that's true. he was.
39.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
But anyway, that was just. an
can I
aside.
get a motion on Mr. Hawkins? The second,
I'll make that a second.
okay. Mr. McDaniel.
Yes.
Mr. Lewis.
Aye.
Ms. Harris.
Yes.
Mr. Day.
Yes.
Chair votes yes. All right, everyone had a chance to review the reports.
I recommend we accept
Accept
as
those.
presented with thanks.
We have a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Lewis.
Aye.
Mr. McDaniel. Ms. Harris.
Yes.
Mr. Day.
Yes.
Chair votes yes. Our next meeting will be a joint meeting Thursday afternoon at 5 o'clock at the school board office in Effingham.
So how many people go to that? It seems like that's such a small space for the people that are showing up at these meetings.
I've never had many people come to the joint meeting. But then again,
The room is as big as this one.
yeah. And if you want to do it electronically, that'll be fine too.
Okay.
You just have to let us know so we can make sure they're set up.
Okay. Is that right? He's like,
Oh, no, he won't have to set up.
Well, I do have to set, I'm already having to work with Jason to get something set up, so. it shouldn't be-
Okay,
It shouldn't be,
so-
we're gonna have to, in order for it to be on YouTube the way Spencer requested, we'll have to have it
Okay.
set up.
So
of Zoom. So,
who else is going to do it electronically? So we know to be prepared. Okay. You gonna be there?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. you-
All
all
right.
right, so, no.
Okay. Well, call me if that changes.
All right. Have we covered everything?
Mr. Chairman, I just had a couple questions. I had a couple citizens ask me about the release of our agenda. It was released on Thursday. Public, if that could be moved up today, allow more time.
I mean, they get it as soon as we get it.
Yeah, I'm just letting you know that that's a concern out there. If you-
It's been a concern.
Yeah, brought it up 3 years ago.
We'll Spencer get back. We'll see if we, we'll talk to them and see if we can get it.
I'm gonna talk to this one right here.
Or talk to Brandy, see if we
He's
can
the
get it.
holdup. Talk to that one.
Wow. Wow, poor figure. If we can get it, maybe if we can get it Wednesday night.
Throw you under the bus,
Well, it
right?
used to be like,
Every day.
everything was due on Wednesday at 12.
So,
Bolster doesn't follow directions.
She feels free since this is not recording.
Yeah.
Oh, it is recording.
okay, well, let's see if we can shoot for Wednesday evening.
You want Wednesday then instead of Thursday?
It's possible. Just let's see if we can do it. That's,
Y'all just work it out. I just throw it out there and says,
you know, if that would make people happy to get it 24 hours earlier. We had a pretty good crowd tonight. Did see what the ability did.
But, to Steve's position, the fiscal stuff does come down to
Right.
the last minute, and it may just not be.
And I'm just saying, it might not be possible.
Yeah, well, it wasn't when I asked.
Right, so we're not gonna recreate the world. If it's possible, we will. If it's not possible, we just can't get it done. But I'm thinking if you get it Thursday night, we don't meet till Monday night.
But the deadline could still be Thursday, and if it happened earlier, it happened earlier, right? Is
Yeah.
that-
People are allowed to read agendas on Saturday and Sunday.
And then the other question that had come up, and I wasn't here at the last meeting, so I apologize if I just didn't hear it, but moving forward, are we doing like just a public comment section, or are we allowing public comments on individual items throughout the agenda? How's that?
No, well, only outside of the public comment section. If it's a public hearing, they can talk. We try to keep the public hearings on when we talk about the topic, not when they jump up front. And we tried to explain that. I guess we didn't do too well last time. They were talking about things that weren't on the agenda.
I think that confused some people, you know, when they started jumping around, so they just wanted to know.
Yeah.
What they need to do.
They can, the public comment, and then there are public hearings. Public hearings are to specific topics.
Never said it.
Right.
Advertised.
Yeah.
One we had tonight with Mr. Richardson was a little off at my request because he was coming to speak to it. And I felt like it made more sense to have him speak on his item rather than public comment.
And then probably
it's
we
a
didn't
form
need to
of
rile up
application.
the public that was here.
I agree. And then
But he did.
Mr. Lewis, and I thought we were going to try to set some sort of meeting in October to meet with the community about the admissions tax. Can I get with you as far as the date and who we may be meeting with or whatnot?
Well, can I say, some of those people are in, well, I mean, I guess they're on all of our districts, right? You know, I'd like to be part of that too, if we're gonna do that, but did we set it for October? Is that what we said? That you were gonna meet?
I just,
We were trying to get it done so that we could get it during the budget process. And that's why, and then, you know, once you get beyond October, you got Thanksgiving, then you got the holidays and the budget dragging.
Well, it's because you're in the finance. That was the rationale. I got it. I understand.
So, yeah, sure. We're gonna.
we had anybody ask about wanting to be a part of that?
Well, Mark Klein volunteered that night.
The guy from Natural Bridge.
Mr. Rutigliano?
Rutigliano, yeah.
The last thing I had, sir, was this Thursday, I guess, is Constitution Day. A lot going in our country. Most important document to our country starts out with we the people. So, very important language for an important document.
Anything else? Have a motion to adjourn. Second. All in favor? All right, thank you. Sorry it took so long.